Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot and welcome to Friday's reading. So, if you are a person who works on weekdays, this is super exciting because now the weekend is finally here. So, what we'll look at, whether you work on weekdays or not, is kind of what's happening with this over the weekend. What is kind of the energy of this situation, this soulmate situation over the weekend? One thing that seems like it's been coming up a lot in the notes, you guys send me a lot of notes, and it's all about memories coming back. It's all about kind of the songs popping up, memories you haven't thought of in a long time, things just sort of popping up, almost so many of them that you're saying, like, what is this? Why all of a sudden is all of this coming back? What do I need to see? What do I need to know? And so that is what we're going to look at, although we're specifically going to look at it through the lens of this weekend. So, kind of looking in that really near term, just to see what that energy is all about and what to expect. So, of course, it'll be a general reading for this collective. It's not going to resonate with everyone, shouldn't resonate with everyone, but if it does resonate with you, take a look at some of the other readings. Maybe go back about a week just to get some of the more recent messages, but you can go back as far as you want, honestly, because they're all very much connected. And so you'll find messages that could be helpful all along the way. So I'm going to read for you with the constellation, with the Constellations Tarot. And let's see, what was this one called? The Aquarian Tarot. I usually have that one right at the tip of my tongue, but for some reason, and that's a strange one for me to not remember. I think I'll use this as my main deck. We'll use Constellations as the clarifier. And then we've got the Sacred Forest for the oracle card when we get to that. So we'll either use that at the end of this reading or we'll do it when we get into the extended, if we do an extended. So let's start with the energy of the weekend. The energy of the weekend, just kind of what's in the backdrop, that energetic and emotional backdrop. So this will also include some of that energy between the two of you. So energy of change. We have the Death card. Something moving. So remember we recently saw that concept of something moving aside so that something else can take its place. I felt that Four of Swords. Yeah, there's a sense of healing. We've also got the Nine of Swords, a sense of anxiety. What I get with this is not just that feeling of anxiety, but also that feeling of looking for a solution to the anxiety, looking for a way for that to get more comfortable, looking for something that would be kind of a relief. But also with the healing piece in here, I think I question how much relief comes in, and I think that there may be higher levels of anxiety with this change. So that's something that could be impacting you as well. So if you've got some change happening in your life and there's a way for you to focus on the healing portion of it, this is kind of an indication that there may be some opportunity for that here. Although, not to say that it won't come with a little anxiety. I think having that awareness may help you work through it. Whereas with your person, that may be a little bit tougher for them because they're probably not watching these messages. Let's see what else comes in. So there's definitely a sense of kind of an on edge. It's not inherently bad, even though it feels like it's change. It feels like it's a need for healing and there's some anxiety in there. It's almost got like an edge of entertainment or excitement instead of just the anxiety. Oh, okay. So a little bit of fear, not wanting to make the same mistakes twice, and a definite sense of discombobulation. So this is the energy of hearing from somebody that you haven't heard from in 15 years, or, and it's somebody that you never thought you'd hear from again, and it's not this person, but it gives you this same sort of, I have to question everything now. There's, again, that feeling of memories banging on your door, things coming back that make you kind of reconsider some things. And the other thing that I think it brings you, this person from 15 years ago doesn't really have to come all the way back. It's just the memories that if the memories come back, that's enough. Because I think what it does is it really gives you a little bit of perspective on what's happening with your person and realizing how far you've come. And when you look at it, how much more self-worth you're able to display than you did maybe, and I say 15 years ago, that's an arbitrary number, but what I mean is something that's relatively far back. But it feels a little bit like you're sitting there saying, wow, what is all of this? Why do I suddenly have so many of these memories going on? It's time to walk through a new door. It's time to walk through a new door with your head held high. And this is a great energy to do it. So if you've got an opportunity this weekend, and of course this is true for your person too, but once again, if they're not the ones listening, they may not be able to benefit from the just the heads up that it's coming, but they may do great with it. There's an opportunity here that you need to be prepared for, something that you're kind of a situation that you are now prepared for more because of what's happened with your person, and you kind of get a little bit of perspective on it with that. I'll just call it the 15-year ago situation, and again, that may just come back to you in the form of memories, but you're being prepared very much for something new, and you're encouraged to walk through that door with your head held high. So something kind of positive there. Like I was saying, there's a little bit of an excitement along with that anxiety, almost like stage fright. Okay, let's see what else wants to come out with that. It's an interesting thing. So if you've got a performance this weekend, it does kind of bode well. It has an attentive awareness to it. So it's not just the stage fright portion. It's that stage fright that allows you to have just enough awareness to make sure that you're not getting too lazy up there, you know? Okay, so we have the Cassiopeia card. This is like the judgment card in the traditional tarot, and it has a lot to do with being able to observe yourself, or your person being able to observe themselves. We've seen quite a bit of this, and one of the things that you are able to see a little bit more carefully and a little bit more closely now. Let's see, it is just going to be these top four. I never know how many I'm going to get. Okay, so we've got this judgment sort of feeling here, being aware of what's happening in your energy, being aware of how things look, having a little bit more of an ability to look at things with some perspective. Um, with the Six of Pentacles, it's a sense of here are all of the places where either you didn't treat someone right or you didn't get treated right. So that's something that kind of comes out, and there's a little bit more of an awareness of what that looks like here. It doesn't necessarily come out with a lot of pain, but it is an awareness. And for your person, the way that it manifests is them realizing, hey, there are some places where I've really not done some things right. When they look at the situation with you, and you are not the only one that they have that they've treated in this way where they weren't giving as much as they were receiving. So it sounds like they've got some friends or some family or possibly even coworkers who they haven't been treating quite right. They've been behaving in a similar way, and it's a very defensive way. It doesn't seem like it's meant to diminish or belittle the other person or to signify that there isn't as much value, but they are not being conscientious, or they haven't been conscientious about the way they've treated people, you included, and they're being very aware of it here with the Cassiopeia card. Now with the Earth card, here's where things start to get interesting. This is that's the sense of things not being over, and it's got an air of action to it. What concerns me about it, though, is we've got an air of action with a Page of Pentacles here in the reverse, which would suggest that there's a lesson here that they need to learn that's not quite learned, or they haven't quite picked up the important pieces of it. And with that healing energy that's happening here along with this anxiety, I could see how that might be the case. So there's opportunity for learning. There's opportunity to close some loops, maybe close some gaps, but also an opportunity for learning. So something just to be aware of. You might come up against some things that you aren't quite sure how to handle, or maybe you never quite knew how to handle. And that's okay. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the way that it feels here, it's really got a very wait and see sort of feel to it. So it's not something that you're going to necessarily be able to prepare for, but when you get there, you're recommended to be thoughtful. You don't have to move super fast. There's not a need to make a quick response, but this is a weekend where you're going to be able to, you're going to have situations that you approach them, or the situations approach you. You find yourself in these situations and you're going to have to deal with it in some sort of, there will be a more artful path and a less artful path. You're encouraged to take the more thoughtful, artful path. It's going to benefit you in the future, but I don't also, if you go on that stage and you bomb, I don't think it has long lasting impacts or long lasting implications. This is really going to just be about what kind of weekend it feels like for you. So there's a lot of opportunity here, but, I don't feel like it's a lot of likelihood of bad things going on. So you got a pretty lighthearted weekend here. But with that little element of stage fright and that element of something that's changing. So I'm curious about that change, something to watch out for. And I imagine I'm going to get a couple more notes from you guys. About what this change is, because it feels like a shift that maybe I don't know why it feels this way. It feels like a shift that goes maybe toward that full moon. So we have the full moon on, I think it's the 22nd. It's gonna be shortly after the summer solstice. I remember that, and I think it's just a day or two later. So I'll have to look at a calendar to be sure. But I know that that's the energy that we're building toward in this. So be aware, it's kind of got this ramping up sort of energy, and at that point then it's not necessarily, I don't think, going to completely taper off or fall off. I think it's more of a matter of changing course, like you're getting up to speed. So let's look a little bit farther into this weekend. I see we're ramping up to something, but let's see what happens kind of here closer in this near term, because we saw potential for, thought we had one for a minute there. We saw potential for communication. In yesterday's reading, we noted that they were very afraid of the concept of pairing up, and yet had this feeling of kind of like wanting to move quickly towards you, even before they get themselves figured out. With that sense that they're going to find happiness and heal along the way. So that made us wonder what they're actually likely to do in this energy. And that was what we looked at in the extended. So we got into the extended and we saw they are likely to come your way. But they aren't going to be able to do all that healing along the way like they were hoping for. There was that sense of, I'll heal along the way, but they get distracted. So instead they have some challenges around lessons that they haven't learned, but it sets them up for some healing. So it felt like you might have a period of separation that pops in as a result, but it also felt like it sets them up for some good healing, which is a concept that we've seen here a little bit. Your energies are just sort of bouncing off of one another and setting you up for additional lessons, additional facets of lessons that are things that you are already sort of working on. But there's a lot of passion that happens this weekend, and this is like, this has the energy of one of those weekends you almost have to recover from. And I don't know if it's like a heavy partying weekend, and maybe for some of you it is. But I would say that's not necessarily what this is. We have the Page of Rods, which is a bit of a party vibe. We've got the Queen of Rods, which is a passion. So you have passion and kind of a desire to party. And then you have the Judgment card in the reverse, which, honest to goodness, doesn't just feel like not passing judgment. It feels like looking the other way, losing one's inhibitions and making some interesting choices. That's the sort of energy of the weekend. So, woof, watch out for that. I remember being in a time in my life where I would have thought, oh, hey, that sounds like super interesting energy. Sign me up. Now I'm not so sure. Or I am pretty sure, actually, that kind of energy seems like it could be more to dig yourself out of than is really worth it. It takes a lot of energy. It's like I said, it's the kind of weekend you have to recover from, and it can come in many forms. So it doesn't have to be you go out there and destroy your whole life with crazy parties. Let's see. We've got the King of Cups. So we've got the King of Cups with your person sort of playing, putting themselves out there, but maybe leading you on a little bit in this energy, because this is that I have some emotion that's going to come out, but it's very much limited. I have limitations to it, and there's a hard stop when there's a hard stop. But it still does have that communication sort of vibe where they are inclined to reach out. Do we want this one? I don't think we do. It'll come back out if we need it. So we've got the Columba card, and this is like the Fool. It is very much jumping into something new, but it's jumping into something new with eyes wide open. So that's where I get like the drunk text where they're not particularly drunk, but they're maybe using it as a little bit of an excuse. And still, though, this idea of really just sort of leading a person on, but not ever. And I don't think it's because they don't have any intention of giving you what you deserve or giving you what you want. I think they haven't thought it through. It really has that sense of, oh, I wonder where I'm going to go with this, but not really knowing. With the Horologium card here in the reverse, it's got that, it's the Hanged Man card in the traditional tarot, but it is also a sense in this case of that perspective that they're almost hiding from themselves. Like I said here with the Judgment card, it's that sense of looking the other way. So it feels like, well, it's got a bit of a party and passion vibe to it. So I would just say be careful though, because it does feel like you would have to recover from this. Um, if you are able to connect, if you do connect with this person, there's a lot of intensity. Lot of intensity. The King of Swords says there's a great ability for being able to work out pretty much any problem. So it's a strategy thing, but it's the sort of thing where you're trying to figure out how to resolve a challenge that is getting in the way of a good time, and you're able to figure out the challenge to get around whatever those issues are. So that again could take a number of forms. I would just say be prepared to have to, when you think about the next day, what that's going to look like. So try to keep that in your mind at the time, whatever that means for you. Because there is a feeling of fear kind of breaking things down. And so we've got the Knight of Swords and we've got the Hercules card, which is like the Strength card. So the Hercules card being in the reverse means acting out of fear rather than acting out of strength. So again, with this relatively kind of passionate and it, it's it's a passionate feeling, but even though we've got that King of Swords, it is not really a well thought out sort of chain of events that unfolds here. So be prepared to be ready to jump into something that isn't very well thought out. So I will tell you, I definitely did that already. So I already did that. But what I did was decide to take a class that I may be ill-suited for. So I'll get back and let you guys know how much of a travesty this ends up being. But what I'll tell you is, may be relatively self-destructive. I did it it's ice skating. And I'm not a spring chicken, so we'll see how it goes. But I got ready for an ice skating class, and now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, it's you figured out how to get into the class, you figured out how to clear the time, you figured out how to do the things, you jumped off the cliff, you're looking the other way with some things. I mean, obviously that's pretty, not so scary. This I feel like is more relationship oriented, but the concept is still the same. It's having done something without necessarily thinking it through all the way, and now you're like, well, I may have to do some cleanup from this, but why don't I go ahead and roll with it and see how it goes? Just be careful how you roll with it. So if you're in a situation where you could stand to create some damage, try to utilize a little bit of your let me think about the next day and let me think about that cleanup process. Because I feel like this involves you. This isn't just going to be them making a mess by themselves over here. If they get in touch with you, if you do get that communication, this could be a little bit of a hairy situation. But we also have them watching you before they communicate, or them observing, looking you up, looking into, there's sort of a spying energy that comes along with that. And it's spying, but it's like they don't particularly mind if you see them, which is a little different from their usual spying energy. And I feel like you're going to feel that edge. Regardless of if you hear from them, you're going to feel the edge of, ooh, hold on. I can practically feel you looking at my social media right now, With the Eight of Swords, be careful though, because there is a tendency in both of you toward overthinking and maybe taking things to taking things a direction that again might require some cleanup, might require some damage control. We now have the Page of Swords showing up in the reverse as well. Um, this is that same hiding sort of thing, but it's like we see the hiding and the spying at the same time. It almost comes together. I'm going to put these two together. It almost kind of comes together with these two cards. I feel like we saw this yesterday, that same sort of feeling of running and hiding, but like not going too far away because they want to be able to still see you and see your reaction to things. With the Three of Pentacles, though, and the Eight of Pentacles, oh my goodness, they come together with the Three of Cups and the Ace of Wands, but not the good Ace of Wands, and I can explain. So the Ace of Wands is a card of inspiration. It's new, passionate beginnings, but it is also sometimes a card of making some questionable choices. A lot of times when you see it come here in the reverse, it's something about putting out your own flame, and sometimes that can come in the sense of, or it can come in the form of just a number of self-destructive behaviors. So this Ace of Wands has a self-destructive edge to it, but it also has a potential to pull out of the skid. So watch for that. Be aware that sometimes things can look a little bit scary, and still, if you end up walking, go through the door, walk with your head held high, make sure that you're doing things that you feel proud of, or that you will feel proud of in the light of day. That's what I would say, because that third party situation, that it feels like it hasn't really let go of them yet, the lessons that they're still learning, but maybe they're trying to just sort of turn a blind eye to it. They're definitely looking to not think about the whole situation, and this third party situation is definitely something that they would be drinking to forget, if that's the form this takes. So for some of you, there is going to be an opportunity to go out for drinks. There is going to be an opportunity to get together in some way. It is going to maybe get a little bit too intense, and there's going to be problem solving of maybe the worst kind, where you figure out how to get past things that honestly probably should stop the situation. But be aware that there's nothing here that I feel like that I don't feel like there's anything here that is completely insurmountable. However, it may create a little bit of a setback for you. So I'm curious to understand a little bit more about this. There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of intensity, but I'm also seeing that, like I said, turning a blind eye, maybe a little bit of a self-destructive feel, using your logic to get through problem solving so that you can get yourself into situations that are things that the next day you might consider them to be questionable. And keep in mind, this is a vibe between the two of you, so it's either one of you potentially moving in this direction. Just if you have the opportunity to interact with this person, you will do best to walk the high road. We'll get you a little bit of advice right here, and then we're going to go into the extended and go deeper into this, because I can already hear the questions coming from you, like, are what is this person going to do? So let's look into it a little bit more and see the nature of this communication, the nature of this contact, the nature of this energetic vibe, because I feel like even if you don't feel contact, or if you don't experience 3D contact, you're going to kind of be going through it a little bit, and that the memories banging on your door, the songs that are coming up, are kind of the tip of the iceberg, is the other thing that I feel. And I thought that earlier today when I first started hearing about it. I was like, well, it seems like it's something that's coming rather than something that's here. So we'll look a little bit more into that, and hopefully have some idea of what it is that you're doing this weekend, or what kind of energetic interactions you're likely to have. So let's get you a little bit of advice. Figure out where your area of focus needs to be given all of this. All right, so you get to experience a situation where you aren't especially happy with with something that you do, or something that your performance in some place. I don't feel like you do anything wrong, but you try to do something and it doesn't come out well, or something like that. I feel like you need to lean into that and kind of see what sort of lessons come from it, because it may be that you're discovering, and this is kind of specific, but bear with me. I feel like it feels a little bit like you realize that you have a fear of rejection, but you get into a place where you do something that could potentially get you rejected, and you stare right into the face of it, you don't get rejected, and you kind of get on top of that fear just a little bit. So that's going to help you get into a little bit of the big three. So remember, the big three is that fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of betrayal. And so this is helping you. You're making a little progress on the fear of rejection piece. With the Ten of Pentacles, there is something here where you're recognizing, it's like you're recognizing something that you have. You're recognizing what you have. You're recognizing, instead of being in a place of lack, you're in a place of realizing what you have accomplished, how far you've come. It's kind of a gentle feeling within. It reminds me of a glimmer a little bit. So the concept, if you're not familiar with the concept of a glimmer, it's like one of those moments where you just feel kind of warm and happy, for not necessarily because something happened. It just hits you, that something, a light will hit something just right, or the feeling will hit you just right. And even in the midst of some very challenging days, you might just be walking around saying, you know what? But this is okay. But this is okay. I don't have as much of a fear of rejection. I'm looking at my life, and there are some things that are really a wreck, but there are some things that are really just okay. And then here with the Knight of Swords, this is that feeling of, it almost seems like reflection, self-reflection. So the Knight of Swords, sometimes it's a card of running away, sometimes it's a card of hiding. I get a sense in this case it's a card of not moving forward to take a next step because you want to spend some time thinking about the last one. So it doesn't feel like hiding or even holding off. It feels like really evaluating that previous step so that you can figure out, glean what you need to, so that you'll be better with the next step. So you have the Knight of Wands here in the reverse. This is kind of a sense of adversity coming your way. It's very much connected to this Empress. It is something that, it's adversity, but it's like you get in your own way and you do something poorly. That's really what it feels like. It's like it's not even necessarily making a mistake. It's something that you are trying to do, but it doesn't come out as well as you would like for it to. And you feel like it could create that feeling or trigger that sense of rejection, but it doesn't, because you have come a long way and you get to recognize that. But there's still, with this Knight of Wands, a little bit of a sense of that adversity that comes in and kind of creates that for you. You are not so resistant about it though, and it's like you're your own support system with the Jupiter card. So the Jupiter card is like the Emperor card in this deck, and sometimes we see the Emperor around control, sometimes it's like a fatherly sort of support, sometimes it's anything masculine, because it is that masculine energy. Okay, so you have a lack of defensiveness and yet the masculine support. So this is like everyone has that masculine and feminine within themselves. Their feminine is threatened here, and their masculine is kind of just what comes in underneath to support. I mean, that's what you are doing. You are supporting yourself. That is that inner child work that you've already done, that's coming out and putting you in a place where you don't have to feel defensive. You've got the defenses coming down. You don't have to feel defensive, and you'll know it when it happens. I'm not saying you like being bad at this or whatever, whatever it is that creates this situation where you feel like there's sort of potential for rejection. You don't like it, but it also, you understand how to put it in the correct place of perspective, and you don't feel like it's the end of the world as a result. But I do see you evaluating that previous step and thinking a little bit more carefully about your next one. With the Queen of Swords, here's more of that thinking carefully about the next one, because the Queen of Swords has a lot of not making a rash decision, not going forward super quickly with something that probably needs to percolate for a little bit, needs to have some time to roll around in your mind before you make some decisions about it. And I think that may be directly related to this, but we'll see a little bit more of that when we get into the extended. So you've got the King of Wands. There is a strong tendency to, this is a leadership sort of vibe. It's a strong tendency to not necessarily take control, but when you see that there's a need for someone to lead or someone to kind of come in and make sense of the whole thing. This is that making sense of chaos, but in a servant leadership sort of way. And so if you're not familiar with the concept of servant leadership, this is the concept of a leader. Often it's referenced it references a workplace situation, but it's a leader who kind of their whole purpose is to remove obstacles from the path of the people who work for them. And this is that kind of vibe. So it has it's not the arrogant side. This is not an imbalanced or an unbalanced King of Wands. This is a particularly balanced feeling, but it's like having that warmth in the leadership to be able to say, no, I've got this. I've got you. Come on, you can follow me and I will be able to get you there. It's that kind of feeling, and it arises in you. There's also a great deal of love. This is love. This is messages coming out. This is great. So you knew there were messages coming out, because we keep hearing, go in there and do the meditation and the prayer. Make sure you do the meditation. So the messages are right, they're really ready to come out. They're really ready to come out. But there's also this sense of needing to open you up. Both you and your person are having this emotional opening right now. And I feel like in this sense that your person, we know that they do a lot of kind of pushing those emotions down. I feel like you're being encouraged to open up to them. And there are going to be some opportunities for you to do that, but it may not be as easy as it sounds, which I can't believe I'm saying that to this collective because you guys are so good with that. But there's something here about having sustained um, a little bit of the pain of this experience has created a little bit of hesitation in you that you may not realize until you run across a situation that is designed to open you up. So you have that working on you right now, and maybe it's this weekend where you start to realize, oh my goodness, I do have some limitations that maybe didn't have before, places where you're afraid to be vulnerable. Look for something where it's like you make a plan but don't want to go. Look for a situation where you make a plan but don't want to go, or you've decided to do something and you now are looking for an excuse to get out of it. That sort of vibe. That's what I get with the sun in reverse here. When you feel it, sit down and meditate with it, and sit down and think about it before before you call somebody or get a hold of them and tell them you're not going to make it. Sit down and think about it for a little while and see what comes to you. At the end of that, so we're not making any rash decisions. At the end of that, if you still feel like you need to not participate or you need to not go, then absolutely call it off. But there is something here about, so sit on it for a moment before you make that call, because it may be too much of a rash decision that's trying to happen there. So when I take all of this and I think about it, I superimpose that over this, it makes me wonder even more, like, what sort of action is coming your way? What sort of behavior do we see out of this person? Because we've got like a party and a passion vibe and a turning the other, like looking the other way. And you're being encouraged to walk the high road. So well, let's look what that's going to be about. We're going to look into that when we get into the extended. So the link will be down below for that if you want to go to the extended. I'm going to go to that now. I would love to see you there. If not, then I will see you again in the next reading.